You wake up. Your body aches. Your forehead is burning. You go to the doctor. They take one look at you and say, "Relax, it's just a virus. Drink water, get some rest. You'll be fine in a week." And they're right. After a few days, you start feeling better. Then, out of nowhere, it hits you again. The fever spikes. Your chest tightens. Every breath feels like a slow struggle. You're back at the hospital, and this time, the doctor's face is different. The virus opened a door, and bacteria walked right through it. You now have severe bacterial pneumonia. For the next month, it's rough, really rough. But in the end, a course of antibiotics pulls you through, a few small white pills, and you walk out of that hospital fully recovered. In today's world, that's a terrible experience, but a survivable one. But here's the question I want you to sit with. What if you pressed a button, and that exact same illness hit you 10,000 years ago? No hospital, no IV drip, no antibiotics. Just you, your body, and whatever your tribe could figure out. What happens then? Part 1, the invisible enemy. To understand what ancient humans were up against, you have to accept one brutal truth. For 99.9% of human history, we had absolutely no idea bacteria existed. None. Zero. No microscopes. No germ theory. No concept of infection. So when you collapse in the middle of your tribe with a raging fever, nobody around you knows what's happening inside your body. What they see is this. You were fine, and now you're dying. To them, the explanation is obvious. You angered a god. You were cursed. An evil spirit has entered your body, and so the shaman comes. He smears mud on your face. He dances around you. He makes you drink something bitter, something that burns going down. Maybe the juice of a plant that's borderline poisonous. None of it touches the actual problem. Because deep inside your lungs, Streptococcus pneumonia is multiplying, and it doesn't care about rituals. Without antibiotics, these bacteria can double in number roughly every 20 minutes. Your immune system is fighting hard, but it's outnumbered, overwhelmed, and running out of time. Within 1 to 2 weeks, the most likely outcome is respiratory failure, and it wasn't just pneumonia. Think about this for a second. A scratch from a branch. An infected tooth, a pimple that got squeezed at the wrong time. Any of these could spiral into a fatal infection. In the ancient world, the threat of dying from a tiny wound was just as real as being hunted by a predator. That's the world our ancestors actually lived in. Part 2. The accidental genius of ancient medicine. Now, humans are not passive. We adapt, we observe, we experiment. And over thousands of years of trial and error, ancient people stumbled onto some treatments that sound completely absurd today. But here's the thing. Some of them actually worked. Method 1. Moldy bread. In ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, healers dealing with infected wounds would deliberately seek out mold. Moldy bread, moldy soybeans. They'd press it against the wound and hold it there. That sounds like folklore, but it's not. Modern science later confirmed what those healers had accidentally discovered. Certain molds naturally release chemical compounds that kill bacteria. They were using a crude, unrefined version of what we would eventually call penicillin. They didn't understand why it worked, but they noticed that it sometimes did. And they kept doing it. Method 2. Honey. On an ancient battlefield, if you were lucky enough to have access to a skilled healer, they might cover your wound in honey. Not as a comfort, as a treatment. Honey has extremely high osmotic pressure and strong acidity. When bacteria come into contact with it, they are essentially drained of moisture and die. Honey is also naturally resistant to contamination. Jars of it have been found in ancient Egyptian tombs, still perfectly preserved after thousands of years. It was one of the most effective wound dressings available to the ancient world. And they figured that out entirely through observation. Method 3. Maggots. This one requires a strong stomach. when a wound became severely infected, when the flesh started dying and nothing else was working, some tribes would place fly larvae directly into the wound. Yes, maggots. Here's what makes this remarkable. Certain maggots only consume dead and rotting tissue. They leave healthy tissue completely untouched. And the secretions they produce actively help kill bacteria. It's a precise biological cleaning system, operating inside the wound. And this isn't just ancient superstition. Today, in modern hospitals, maggot therapy is still used to treat severe diabetic foot ulcers because it works. Part 3. The hard truth. But let's be honest about something. These methods were clever. Some of them were even effective. But they had real limits. Honey on a surface wound? Possibly helpful. Maggots cleaning out dead tissue? In some cases, genuinely useful. Moldy bread on a knife cut? Maybe. But your pneumonia is internal. It's inside your lungs. No amount of honey or maggots changes what's happening in there. So how did ancient humans survive bacterial infections at all? The answer is stark. A lot of them didn't. Before antibiotics, the average human lifespan hovered around 30 years. Not because people aged out at 30, but because child mortality was devastating. Countless infants and children died from infections we now treat without a second thought. Every fever was a gamble. Every wound carried risk. Every winter brought new threats. And the ones who survived into adulthood? They were selected for survival. Natural selection, operating at full force with no mercy, had already removed the people whose immune systems couldn't handle the pressure. The adults who remained were extraordinarily resilient, not because ancient life was healthier, but because the weak had already been eliminated. Quietly, before they ever had a chance to pass on their genes. Their immune systems were fighting wars we can barely imagine, without any outside support, winning month-long battles inside their own bodies against bacterial armies. And they did it because they had to. Because there was nothing else. Part 4. The miracle we forgot to notice. Now come back to the present. Come back to that little white pill. In 1928, Alexander Fleming looked at a contaminated petri dish and noticed something strange. A patch of mold was killing the bacteria around it. He followed that observation, and eventually, it led to penicillin. That moment changed everything. For millions of years, bacteria had held an enormous advantage over complex life. Infections killed indiscriminately, the young, the old, the strong, the weak. It didn't matter. A bad wound, a winter illness, a simple dental abscess. Any of these could end a life. And then, in less than a century, we flipped that equation. A cut that once could have turned fatal? Manageable. A tooth extraction? Routine. A bacterial pneumonia that once meant weeks of suffering and a real chance of death? A course of medication. And you're back to your life. That's not just medical progress. That's a fundamental shift in what it means to be human. Closing the warning. But here's the part we can't ignore. We've become comfortable, too comfortable. Antibiotics are prescribed when they aren't needed. People take them for viral infections, where they do nothing. They stop their courses early. Bacteria are exposed to just enough antibiotic pressure to learn how to resist, without being wiped out. And the result? Bacteria are evolving rapidly. Resistance is spreading. We are already seeing infections that respond to fewer and fewer antibiotics. The medical community has a name for these pathogens: superbugs. If we're not careful, if we don't treat these drugs with the respect they deserve, we could be moving toward a world where antibiotics stop working. And if that happens, we're not just losing a treatment. We're losing one of the most important advantages humanity has ever had. Outro. So the next time you're sick, and your doctor tells you it's just a virus, no antibiotics needed, Remember that this is actually good news. And when you do need antibiotics, and you take them, and a week later, you feel completely fine, take a second to appreciate that. Because for almost all of human history, that outcome wasn't guaranteed. A fever like yours ended people, smart people, strong people, people who survived saber-toothed tigers and brutal winters and everything nature could throw at them, killed by something invisible, something they couldn't see or name or understand. You survived because someone noticed mold in a petri dish. Because decades of science built on that observation. Because a doctor handed you something that had no equivalent for 99.9% of human existence. That's not small. That's extraordinary. If you've ever had a moment where what felt like a minor illness suddenly turned serious, I'd genuinely like to hear about it in the comments. And if this video made you think differently about something you usually take for granted, that's exactly what we're here for. Like and subscribe if you want more. I'll see you in the next one.